Hey, how's everyone doing? Welcome to another edition of Weekend. I guess it's not Weekend AMA anymore. It's Ask a Dev is what I'm calling it. I hope everyone's doing good, man. It's been a long couple weeks, so some of you may have seen, hey man, where you been? That's top secret. All right, so we'll talk about it another time. We've been out there doing it, getting it done. All right. But good morning. It's about 8 a.m. for me here. Um, but hey, we keep it going. All right. So good morning. As always, I like to take your guys' questions once a week to answer what questions you may have to help provide some direction. I think mentoring is sort of crucial for any software engineer. So, GraphQL versus OData. I would say GraphQL. I'm not super familiar with OData or GraphQL. I'm just saying GraphQL based off of the market share. So GraphQL is probably the more widely used front-end query based sort of frameworks. What's going on, Josh? What is D3JS? D3 is a jQuery-esque. I say jQuery-esque because it's based off of jQuery in the sense of how it's structured. Data visualization library. So what you're going to do with that is you're going to build graphs and charts, and it's very versatile. I personally don't like it. The reason for it or the reason why I don't like it is it's too versatile. You need to actually go and become a chartologist or whatever they're called to utilize it. It doesn't actually come native with any built-in graphs. Like you can't just say, "Hey, I want a bar chart." Great, this is how I create a bar chart. No, you have to define axes. You have to go um, and define various scaling of the graph. Accordingly. I'm not a big fan of it. I would personally rather use something like Charts.js, Google Charts, those types of things to get what I want done. But that's just me. D3 will be more versatile though. So, do I recommend someone? Do I recommend Ruby on Rails for for self-learning dev? No. I typically will recommend JavaScript, not only because that's what I'm most familiar with, but because that's what the market is looking for more so than Ruby and Ruby on Rails. Not to say they can't get a job in Ruby or Ruby on Rails, but by and large, you are going to be getting jobs in JavaScript. Um, um, how to learn from the documentation pages? Really, what I would say is, it's one time go through each page and just read through what it does and how it works. Spend about 8 hours doing it. After that, go build projects and just reference it. Data structures you use most. Well, in JavaScript, it's pretty easy. There's a few new ones they've added, like maps, but at the end of the day, it's probably just objects and arrays. But there's also this is more of a TypeScript thing, but enums are kind of cool as well. I'm glad you're doing good, Josh. I've taken some lessons lately outside of work. We'll talk about those down the road. I'm good though, man. I'm always scheming, planning. Um, but yeah, there's been a couple lessons that have been learned, or at least felt. uh, Talking to the wife about you last night. I referred to you as self-taught six-figure guy. Hey, give me a couple of years, you'll be referring to me as self-taught seven-figure guy. I don't know. I probably won't get there. But it's good. It is, and that's one sort of cool thing about my story, right? Is like you can see like I've probably delivered pizzas for 7 or 8 years of my life. Um, Before I was a developer, I was delivering pizzas. It wasn't like I had this in, and you could see like, okay, hard work. This is what it does. This is where you can go. You know, uh, which JavaScript framework do you prefer for a beginner to learn? So this is kind of a unique question in the sense that the one I would prefer would be the one that people would say is probably the hardest to learn, and that's Angular. The reason for it is I think it enforces a lot of great principles, specifically solid principles and object oriented programming, and introduces you to static typing with TypeScript. So, although there will be a bigger learning curve, you'll be a better developer because of it down the road. How many lines of code would a typical project at work be? I mean, that sort of depends, right? Every project's different. You can't really put a number on it. Chris got an interview with Amazon. I know you've had an interview with him. Yeah, yeah. So I've interviewed with Microsoft, Google, Amazon, um, I think Facebook once. But yeah, so I can pretty much interview with any of those guys whenever I want. I just have to send the recruiters the job that I want, and they'll submit it for me. So, which is kind of nice. It's nice to get your career to that level where um, you can go and say, "Hey, I want to go work at Google," and go work at Google. The reason I haven't done it is I have to go study some algorithms, and like when Microsoft flew me out to Seattle for my final interview, the thing where I got dinged the most was traditional algorithms. So I just had to brush up on things like breadth first search and binary search, and just sort of put those to memory. But I haven't, as in front end, you don't use those daily at all, and so there's that sort of like, okay, I have to actually go out of my way to learn this stuff, and I'm not really quite there. Um, I don't know. Code Poppy, what's going on, man? I always love that name. That's why I bought the that's why I bought the domain codedaddy.com. No, I didn't buy it, but I'm gonna go check. Can I? CodeDaddy? That seems like a spin-off of that. Oh, damn. Someone bought it and it's $5,000 if you want to buy codedaddy.com. Plus 17.99 a year for hosting. um who's alive that's more innovative than Elon Musk? I mean, is Elon really all that Innovative? I mean, he wants to go to Mars. I don't know that that's innovative. He wants to build electric cars. I don't know that that's innovative. It's great that he's doing it, but people have been talking about electric cars for decades, and they've existed for decades. Maybe not in a very large capacity. He's definitely taking it to a larger capacity and to the forefront. Um, I would say the one thing that I really find innovative about, or like one of his ideas innovative, is the tunneling underground. But to me, that's a band aid on a much larger problem. So it's kind of a unique project, yes, but at the same time, there's better solutions, I think. Um, can you find Bucky Roberts for me? Hey, I think he's working for Microsoft or Google or doing something, right? Any tips for overcoming imposter syndrome? The best one is to interview other candidates and see how bad they are, because 9 out of 10 developers are not professionals, is how I would put it nicely. And it's unfortunate because I've taken a lot of my time to get good and continue to improve, and most people spend 20 years doing the first year over and over again. um, so the other thing is just have a lesson plan of how you're going to grow and mature every year. Eventually, when you start getting multiple six-figure offers on the table, you sort of start, just the numbers speak to themselves. You're like, okay, well, I have 4 offers and I've been looking for 3 weeks, and they're all 100K plus. I think I have some idea what I'm doing. Either that, or I've tricked myself, I've tricked these people, and I am an excellent actor, and that's what I need to do. I don't know. It's one of those things where you have to sort of mature a little bit as a developer, I think. Do I think we are living in a simulated reality? That's an interesting question. No. I think that's one of those things where Elon Musk hit the bong a little too hard and was like, yeah, this is definitely an idea. Um, does Chris actually code though? I've never seen him make a tutorial, and it's GitHub just has a random text generator. I mean, he works as a developer, doesn't he? There's different tiers of developers, so like without a doubt. So it could be that he's doing a lot of static pages, like hotel, like in menus for restaurants. I don't know. I don't know his deal, but he's been writing code for a couple of years, I think. Dylan, do I need to know any more CSS than you passed with Code Academy series working in field as you do? Yes. I don't remember what on the Code Academy series, but I'll write down everything right now that you need to know CSS wise on the whiteboard. So my office is a little bit rough right now. I actually moved my office upstairs. If some of you noticed, we got a new thing going on here. So I'm not fully put together yet, so no judgments. But this is what you need to know for CSS. Pretty straightforward. All right, so a couple things. You're gonna want to know Flexbox. I say this. I actually use CSS Grid. I never use Flexbox. Oh, you can't see that, can you? All right, so you're gonna want to know Flexbox. You're gonna want to know CSS Grid. You're gonna want to understand media queries. All right, there's about 100 different properties you're gonna need to know. Things like how to bold text, how to capitalize things, how to add padding, which brings us to my next thing. So these are sort of the generic, well, not generic, but very specific things. You're going to want to understand the CSX box model. So you're going to want to understand that this is the element, then this is the padding, then this is the border, and then this is the margin. Did I get that right? I always get this last one confused. I think I got that right. The main thing I'm trying to say is that you're going to want to understand how to utilize it properly. Additional thing that you're probably going to want to know is a CSS preprocessor. Sass seems to be the one that people have been leaning towards, but they don't really matter. They all work the same. So things like less as well will work just fine. So you could, and the last major thing that you really are going to need to understand is position and display properties. So it's one of the questions I asked someone to see how good of a front end dev they are is, what's the difference between an inline element and a block level element? And you would be stunned how many people can't give you a decent answer for that. As well, so another decent thing is say, when it comes to position, there's various positions. Can you tell me the difference between fixed and absolute? So you're going to want to master position and display properties, their various values. What else in CSS? I think that's probably pretty good. As you get more advanced, you're going to want to look into things like block element modifier for naming your stuff. There's also atomic design, which I got introduced to at a workplace back, and I really like that. And you're going to want to learn how to create good generic selectors so that you can create a style guide. So in terms of CSS, I think that's probably pretty close to everything that I would know. Um, Now, to work in the field, what do you need to know for an entry level role? Um, Maybe media queries. You definitely have to understand this, and you have to understand display. Position you can get to later. This you can get to later. This you can get to later. Flexbox or CSS Grid, probably one of those as well. Um, Anyhow, what degrees do I recommend to stay away from? Probably the same ones you've already heard, liberal arts degrees. I really would only recommend one degree, and that would be something in 2 degrees. I take it. Excuse me, something in finance because money goes where money goes, and software. So there's various types of software degrees: software engineering, computer science. There's even web dev degrees nowadays. So that's pretty much what I recommend. I'm currently learning React. Any tips? Yeah, just build stuff in it. Definitely include some asynchronous projects. Try and make sure you're building components properly. Start thinking about services. CSS seems easy to learn, but extremely hard to master. I can barely center a div. Yeah. Um, CSS has been something that's been so many iterations that you now have things like Flexbox and Grid to solve the issues that CSS has presented, or the challenges would probably be the better way of saying it. And so, and so, sorry guys, I'm putting on some music real quick. Um, yeah, so that's why you have things like Flexbox and Grid. When is a good time to get an internship in front end development? As soon as possible. Uh, I am a CS student in my second year. Can't find anything. Internship programs and little programs like that. So one thing I put on my resume, and mind you, I don't have a degree, right? So I'm always looking for interesting ways to put on there. But I have two things, th- three things that I've done with them. One, I was the secretary of the Association of Computing Machinery (ACM), and two, I participated in a a program called P3, Plan, Promote, and Participate, which allowed me to get students more involved in various on-campus activities, as well as joined a leap program. I forget the exact acronym for leap, but it's like leadership, exploring exploration, and planning, and that was a leadership sort of boot camp for 10 or 11 weeks. Everything all right? I got my first job as software developer. Yeah, man. Good for you, Sean Kelly. So anyhow, so there's a lot of programs that you can go to beef up your resume once you have once you've volunteered through them in your college. So uh, the the other thing to consider is that there's certificates online, like the free code camp ones. If you sell those are quite well, right? Those do quite well. So you can also do the CIW, the Computer Certified Internet Web Specialist. I've done a couple of those. Fox or CNN. I don't watch the news anymore, man. Um, the only articles I read are whatever's on the side of LinkedIn. Um, can I explain about the internships? Yeah, once you get a little bit comfortable with HTML, CSS, and maybe JavaScript, you might even be able to get an internship before then. Start looking for internships and keep growing. Don't spend all your time doing it. Spend an hour or two a day looking for internships or junior level roles while you're still growing. Can I describe what my workflow is at place I've worked at? Yeah. So, every I'll preface this by saying that every workplace is different. Um, but typically, you're going to work in a Scrum environment, agile environment, specifically with the methodologies behind Scrum. That seems to be a lot of businesses go to. The reason for it is the 2 week iteration that and like ownership of the code where you're trying to, hey, in 2 weeks we can get 25 points done. Typically, people like that. So you're going to be doing stand-ups, meaning every morning you're going to meet with your team for about 15 minutes, no longer. What's going to happen there is you're going to give an update. You're going to say, hey, this is what I did. This is what I'm working on. This is what I'm struggling with. Can someone pitch in? That's sort of how your stand-ups are going to go. Now, besides that, you're also going to have various ceremonies in regards to the Scrum process. You're going to do things like channel backlog. You're going to channel backlog, uh, ticket backlog, where you're going to define tickets, where you're you know helping with the user stories, defining requirements, estimating the tickets. You're going to every 2 weeks give there's going to be a ceremony where you're going to discuss how you can improve. What did we do good as a team? What did we not do as a team? And a big tenet of Agile is you succeed and fail as a team. So, um, so those are some of your ceremonies you're going to be doing. Um, you're also going to be doing sprint planning, where those 2 week increments, you're going to be choosing what tickets need to go forward, prioritizing them. Maybe not prioritizing them. That's usually like the product owner's job. Um, but you're going to be doing that about, maybe it might take up about 20% of your week in meetings on average, not those specific meetings, but those meetings amongst others. And then about 75% of the time you'll be coding in a good week. And then that will depend on what sort of project you're on. You may be if you're unfortunate, you may be maintaining legacy code where you have to go in and fix things. But typically you'll go and grab a ticket on something like VSTS or Jira and work on it and then move it along the board. Yeah, tickets are like jobs that need doing. They have user stories. A user story is like a specific way of writing a requirement. So it would be something like, as a logged in user, I need access to change my password in case I thought it was compromise. And so like that would be the user story on the ticket. And then they would have acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria would be like what we need to make sure we need to check against that um that it succeeds. So like the idea being that, okay, I implemented this feature, but the acceptance criteria will say password needs to change. Like it's written in certain format. Gherkin is one way, Cucumber is another. Uh, so yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but there you go. Do I prefer remote working? Sometimes, not really though. I'm much more of a let's go in house. There are a couple reasons for it. Especially your first couple years. Now I probably wouldn't mind it too much because I can pretty much work alone. I mean, you can always work alone, but how good? I always wanted to go in house for my first couple of years to increase my salary and my skill, and so that was always my mentality. Um, are free code camp certifications worth getting for a resume? Um, I think they're worth getting to learn, and they can go on your resume. Any tips on starting a YouTube channel? Yeah, just start and stick with it. Find out what you like to do. Someone mentioned the Jamstack. Is that what is the Jamstack again? I forgot what that stands for. Yeah, JavaScript. What is the A? APIs markup. Yeah, I don't know enough about it. But I mean, I like JavaScript. I like APIs. Markup is something. Like, are they talking about like the? Are they talking about actual markup, like the stuff you put in GitHub? Because I don't like that. That's bootleg. HTML. So especially with like the fact that you can complete your HTML by just hitting tab, isn't that bad? Any courses I would recommend you take before you get there? Yeah, I just would recommend you study every day. Find whatever courses are related to the content. You should have a syllabus for the course and just find whatever those top ones are. Go through free code camp to do some of the JavaScript section. How do you know if you're ready to start applying to jobs? Um, I always encourage people to apply before they're ready, and then they'll find out if they are. Trying to send a brick, but YouTube declining my car lately. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but I do appreciate that. If you guys want to support the channel, you can with the fan funding down below. You can, of course, also take a look at my courses and the books I recommend in the description. Hey, Julie J. Any other positions that would be a good start to get into development? If you have a passion for design, UI UX is always a good place to begin. Um, Last started you're learning Vue for a new job. How do you like Vue compared to Angular? Um, so I happen to like Angular better. Part of it is Vue has some bad practices just with the way that's written out. Vue is a lot easier to get up and running and going, but like you can't do you can't really sort of I'm looking for do dependency injection in Vue, which means that you can't utilize dependency inversion. So it's there's some issues with Vue, and testing it is some issues. Have I used Ivy and Angular? No, I haven't. Is Ivy the new build tool that's supposed to be there? Yeah, Vuex is great. I will say I really like Vuex, but I mean anything that makes state management easier is good. Yeah, I haven't used Angular since they they implemented that. I never really thought Angular was all that slow. Have I ever used Ionic? Yes, I happen to like Ionic quite a bit. Basil says, I'm 25, living in Romania, working full time in customer service. Want to ask, how do you learn all the HTML tags, CSS properties? I'm having trouble remembering them all by heart. So, HTML doesn't really have that many. You have divs, spans, headings, paragraphs, lists. Let me see, am I forgetting anything? Those are the major ones. There is semantic tags, but like getting started, that's all you have to know. So it's about 6 things. Um, Now you're probably not practicing, meaning like you're not building things, and so of course you're gonna forget it because you haven't sort of created that muscle memory type thing. In terms of CSS properties, yeah, yeah. In terms of CSS properties, quite a few. That will take a little bit longer, and that's just practice. It took me a couple of years to get good at CSS. I was already working as a developer before I got good at CSS. How to stay motivated? I have around 10 Udemy courses. Stop looking for people to motivate you. This is my number one issue with motivation is people are looking for external factors to motivate them instead of internal. Um, when I got seriously motivated and wanted to change my life, and just it was when I probably the darkest time of my life. I felt like a loser. My mom was bringing me groceries, sleeping on the floor, I'm hungry, I'm miserable, I'm depressed, I'm tired. So I found the life motivation within myself to say, you know what, enough is enough. We're about to go do it. And then, I spent 14 hours on Saturday and 14 hours on Sunday coding, about 5 hours on a weekday coding. Um, so another thing is that when it comes to CSS, it always helps to have someone who understands it teach it to you. How to choose side projects to practice, which can also be on my resume. So there's three main ones I'd recommend. One is a typical portfolio project. Another is a CRUD application, and the final one is a progressive web app utilizing service workers and things like that. Do I have a college degree? No. Is Pluralsight any good? I haven't used it, but a lot of people highly recommend it. In my current work, I work a lot with JavaScript and HTML. Do you think I could call myself a web developer in my resume? Yes. How much time do you need to comfortably work with Angular? I mean, 2 hours. You can watch a 2-hour course and understand about 90% of it, and let's just practice after that. You have to understand a couple of things. You have to understand components. You have to understand directives, pipes, and services, and how they all sort of work together. If you do that, you're pretty set. Since React is becoming so popular, will replace the standard model view controller model. I don't know. I think Angular is technically still more popular than React. I could be mistaken though. Do you need to be good at math to learn algorithms? It probably doesn't hurt. Yeah, that's the thing. Is a lot of times people they look at some more high profile devs, right? So like, I'll throw myself into that category, right? Because not every dev is getting hundreds of thousands of views and contributing to the community. But you look at these high profile devs, and all you see is the success. All you see is people who have already made it. But like 5 years ago, this last week or two, I was looking at buying an investment property. It didn't happen. Some things fell through, but buying an investment property. I already own a house. I'm looking to buy a second house. Um, I got money in the bank. Life is good. Whatever. 5 years ago, sleeping on the floor, miserable. Mom's bringing me groceries because I can't afford them. And so sometimes people just see the end result. They just see the trophy, right? They don't they don't know, or they don't care to remember what it took to get there. They just see, oh, he's there, he's always been there, she's always been there. But don't forget the grind. The grind was there, and it was painful. Um, Probably changed me as an individual, uh, for the best and for the worst. Um, so when you see these people who are like, "Oh man, I'll never get that good at CSS. I can't believe it." That was me, man. That was me. Where I'm like, "Yo, fixed absolute position. Hmm. How the hell do I center a div? I gotta do the margin here, the margin there, and then I have to translate x negative 50%. Who the hell wrote this shit? Like everyone at some point was like that. So my point is this is yeah, and so I think the problem is some people getting false hope like learning to code in 3 months. After 3 months past, newbies feel like they're like, yeah, And those people are assholes. To just and that's why I tell people like these like learn to code in 3 months. Like, can you learn JavaScript in 3 months? You can probably learn JavaScript in 3 months. You can sit down. I could teach you the fundamentals of JavaScript because there's not that many in an hour. In an hour, you can come over to my house. We can have some lunch. By the end of lunch, I could teach you the things you need to know about JavaScript. Does that mean you know how to put it all together? No. Like, let's say it's just like any other language. Let's say you don't know how to English, and you're saying, okay, well, I want to write English. I say, okay, cool. You got A to Z. This is what it is. A B C to X Y Z. Great. You know 26 letters. Same thing with JavaScript. You could go an hour. I could teach you the fundamentals of that, and you go, okay, great. Now go out there and use it. And you're like, what? It's the same thing. And so a lot of these things get people so hyped up, which is why I say you should study 3 to 6 months before a boot camp and be prepared to study 6 months after a boot camp. Any advice for reviewing PRs created by sensitive, insecure developers you work with? First, it's very aggressive. Secondly, yes. So I oftentimes phrase things as questions as well as back them up with facts. Now, if for whatever reason there's clearly a better way of doing it and they ignore it, um, I'm happy to talk to these people and have a conversation. Uh, but typically, PRs are more of a suggestion. I wouldn't rate my design skills very high, but if you want to, it is worth to have good design as a front end dev. You'll definitely be worth more value. Put that energy drink away. I know, man. I'm slipping. I'm slipping. We've so as I mentioned, I'll talk about some things in the future, but we've been on a journey. Some might even call it a pilgrimage. It was so epic in life for the last 2 weeks, and so I've been beat down a little bit. You want to be front end and dev is a good idea. Yeah. As a professional developer, do you use any UI UX tools like Sketch or Adobe? I don't. PRs are called they're called a couple different things. Uh, um, peer reviews, code reviews is another thing. And basically, what it means is that before your code goes live, it goes out, and you have other developers look at it, run it, see how they might refactor it, make it look better. You've been a dev for 10 years now and don't have a portfolio. Should build one with my experience trying to get a new job. I mean, you could. With 10 years experience, you shouldn't have any issues getting a job. I get a job with 3 years experience, no problem. I don't know what blind is. No, I haven't used it. The most complex project? I would say probably my last one. Mainly because I've never worked with service workers before. So not only was building a PWA, you have to account for a lot of native features. So not only did I integrate a web manifest and utilize that nicely, but then we also created a nice animation that matched that splash screen for a loading animation, as well as integrated client-side caching, so we could have a offline version of our web app. So if you were able to add our web app to your phone and you lost internet connection, or even on your desktop for that matter, and lost internet connection, it would still work. And then you integrate other features like offline notifications, online notifications. So that's probably the most advanced thing, just because it was something I had no practice in before. Yeah, I would just rather use like a charts.js um or something like Google Charts for. How do I get good at Git? Just understand the core principles, right? Understand cloning. There's really 5 or 6 things you need to do. No, you need to understand what it means to clone a repo. You understand what it means to create a branch, what it means to work on a branch, how to commit, and what that means, as well as pull and push. That's really all you have to understand. Would I like to work/live abroad someday? Yeah. So I plan on retiring by 40. So I'm 31. And retiring is sort of a generic term, but what I basically mean by that is, um, I want to have enough money and freedom, and that's all money is. Money gives you choices, right? Money gives you freedom and choices. So I want to be financially set to the point where, in about 9 years, about 8.5 really, but I am financially able to be self-sufficient, meaning that I don't need to work in an office. I don't need to work for anybody else. I work solely for myself, and I'll do that through various income investments, through investing my income rather, um, things like that. So, researcher for PWA, just Google them. Uh, the ones that Google provides haven't been great. Traversy Media did a okay one on introduction to service workers. How's my dog? Great. Let me see if I can get him up here. You guys won't believe how big this dog's gotten since I showed you guys last. Let me see. Let me get him up here. I'll show you guys. Gator. Well, bring him up here. I'm gonna show him to the channel. You gonna let him in? Gator. Come here, buddy. Get up here, big boy. Oh shit. Come on. Come on, we're gonna show you. We're gonna show everyone how big you've gotten. So, if you guys don't get her this way, come on. If you guys don't remember, my dog is up. Oh, 6.5 weeks old. And when we got him at 6 weeks, he was 15 pounds. I weighed him. Come here. Oh, you good big boy. I weighed him the other day, and he's 52 pounds. And by the end of the year, he'll be 70 or so. Oh, big boy. Oh, say hi. You shy? You camera shy? Oh. All right. Okay. Get out of here. But yeah, he's good, man. He's a happy dog. His so so he he's starting to scare people though, because like he's getting like full dog size, and he looks bigger than 50 pounds because his coat's fluffy. Uh, so his adult coat has come in, and his adult teeth has come in. So he has no baby teeth. So he's got these killer teeth going on, and so like, we let him walk around with us, and I was unloading the car, and the gardener was like, hey, buddy," and, like had his arms up. I was like, he's friendly, man, but he likes to bark at people to get them to play with him. But yeah, he's a good dog, man. Yeah, he's been stacking those gains though. He's gonna keep growing too. Yeah, I've been meaning to make a couple videos on service workers. One like a detailed SkillShare course, as well as a Udemy course, as well as a course for YouTube. So, how does he get along with the cats? Pretty good. He chases one of our cats, uh, but we're trying to break him of that. Other than that, he's pretty good. Go pay your electric bill using outside sunlight to show video. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyhow, yeah. These are closed, man. We open them up. Is that better? It looks a little much, huh? Which front end framework? Earlier, I recommended Angular for various reasons, so you can see that. Is SQL important to learn for web dev jobs? Probably if you're going to be a back end dev or full stack. It's definitely important for front end. I mean, you should understand. So here's the thing: is like to be a good front end dev, you should understand how the back end works, and understand the fundamentals of relational databases and document based databases. Yeah. Speaking of Skillshare, let me see here. Are there jobs in demand for .NET Core? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Return of the King. Yeah, I know. I've been gone for a minute, man. We've been out here grinding a little bit, taking some lessons, but we're back, man. Is there ever a time when any is actually an appropriate type in TypeScript? Yeah. Unfortunately, yes. So sometimes you're working with a type. So sometimes you're working with an API that returns various things. Um, so it's one of those things where here's the most common scenario is probably in a test scenario where you're mocking something out and all you really care about is setting a single value, and you want it to inherit. Like, say I have this type I've defined and that's what it's using. You can't necessarily say, hey, I just want to set this string value, because it'll be a compatibility issue. But what you can do is assign it as an any, which will then say, okay, cool, any includes everything including that, and then that will allow you to mock out your thing very easily. That's probably the most common scenario. Yeah. So like I put this slide in. Can you guys see that? Probably not very well. Looks like a halo going on around it. Um, so we put this slide in not too long ago. You can kind of see it's got this nice sort of silver base around it. We put these in the bedrooms. They're only like $20 a pop, but they had all of our all of our. So you go and you spend $260K on a house, and they put in dollar fixtures. Like, they're the same fixtures they've been in like the apartments I lived in all my life. I'm like, I can't have this. This thing's driving me nuts. Um, So I've been listening to this like nonstop in the background if anyone's interested this whole time. It's been getting me hyped. But yeah, so I'll probably be building I'm a little bit busy this next week or two. I got to get a new desk. I'm using sort of a temporary desk right now, where I can only have one monitor set up on it. So I got to buy a desk, and then I'm gonna probably knock out that service worker course. All right, guys. I think we're a little less than an hour, but it's been fun. It's been real. I apologize for not putting out too many videos last 2-3 weeks, but we're gonna get back to it, and probably not next week, but the following week. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, share. Check out my courses in the description below, and if you're interested in any of the books I recommend that you read to become a better developer, there's links to those as well. See you guys next time. Bye.